I never imagined that inviting a homeless man into my home would change everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was pouring outside. Rain slashed against my windows, creating a dreary symphony that seeped into my bones. I felt the tension in the air, a weight that seemed to press down on me with each thunder rumble. My heart raced. I was home alone, my mind spinning with thoughts of bills, a job I hated, and shadows of loneliness clinging to me like a desperate friend. Then I saw him. At first glance, he looked like a mere silhouette against the downpour. But as I peered through the window, I caught the glimmer of his eyes, deep, sorrowful, and perhaps a little mad. Something inside me shifted. I could feel it pull at my chest, like a call to action. My hands trembled as I opened the door. I could barely process the chilling gust of air that swept through the entryway, mingling with the smell of wet asphalt and something else, something raw. His face was weathered, a roadmap of a life hard-lived. He wore layers of tattered clothing, colors blending into a murky brown, with dirt etched into his skin like he was painted by the earth itself. "Can I help you?" I asked, unsure if I was scared or simply curious that he looked at me. My heart skidded. His voice cracked like thunder, "I need a place to stay just for a night." Something in him invoked a deep empathy I couldn't ignore. I felt the sting of regret and guilt washing over me for all my petty complaints. I hesitated, my mind racing with the chances I could be taking, but I said yes. I didn't know then that this decision would lead me into a world I had never imagined, full of mysteries and truths that would unravel everything I thought I knew. As he walked in, he filled my living room with an indescribable energy. He was silent, almost too silent, as if the air around him buzzed with secrets. I could feel that he was more than just a stranger, there was a weight of stories resting on his shoulders, begging to be shared. My pulse quickened as he looked around, his eyes darting like they were searching for something more than mere shelter. An hour passed. I offered him food, my hands shaking slightly as I handed him a plate. He took it, but his gaze locked with mine, and I felt a connection that went beyond words. It filled the room, a silence thickened with anticipation, as if the universe had paused and was listening. "Do you ever wish you could start over?" he asked, his voice low and almost haunting. I caught my breath, feeling as if he had taken a peek into my soul. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "Every day," I whispered, but I didn't know how to articulate the depth of that wish. Then, something in his expression shifted. Suddenly, he was not just a homeless man, but a mirror reflecting my fears. "Do you know, I once had it all, family, love, then it all crumbled." His words sliced through the silence like a knife, and I felt the air grow heavier with every tortured syllable that I leaned in closer, captivated. What had brought him here? What had he lost? Just then, the lights flickered. A crack of lightning lit the room, casting eerie shadows around us. I was left breathless. "What happened?" I dared to ask. His eyes widened, a storm brewing in them, and for a moment, I swore I saw the beginnings of fear, regret, a terrible sadness, mixed with hope. In that fleeting second, a thunderous noise broke the spell, rattling the windows. I jumped, my heart beating wildly. Questions flooded my mind. What had I just opened myself up to? Would this man's shadow darken my life, or would he somehow illuminate the corners I had long left in darkness? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence that followed was almost deafening, broken only by the persistent patter of rain against the glass. I could feel my heart racing, each beat a reminder of the reckless decision I had made. Why did I let him in? What had I been thinking? His gaze finally fell, and for a moment, I thought he might retreat back into the shell he had first emerged from. But then he sighed deeply, a breath filled with a weight too heavy for one soul to bear alone. It's not just losing everything, you know, he began, his voice thick with emotion as he toyed with the remnants of the meal I had set before him. It's the feeling of being invisible. It does something to you. His words hung in the air, resonating with my own silent struggles. I looked away, wanting to shield myself from the depth of his gaze. Yet, it was as if he could see right through me, uncovering the pieces I had hidden even from myself. "What is your name?" I asked, desperately seeking a way to bridge the chasm between our lives. "Eli," he replied, a fleeting glimmer of life in his voice, as if he was reclaiming a part of himself with each syllable. "And you?" "Sarah," I managed, offering a tentative smile that felt far too small under the circumstances. "Sarah," he repeated softly, and somehow, it felt like he understood the weight behind my name filled with dreams and disappointments alike. The storm continued its relentless assault, and as the wind howled outside, I felt a small spark of connection beginning to illuminate the darkness that hung between us. Maybe this was what I had been longing for, a moment where I wasn't just a solitary soul drifting through life, but someone who could reach out and genuinely care for another. But the bittersweet tinge of my newfound hope was quickly shattered when a sudden crash from outside caught our attention. My heart dropped as I turned to the window, where branches rattled violently against the frame, and I glimpsed the chaotic dance of debris swirling in the storm. "Are you okay?" Eli's voice broke through my panic. "Yeah, just startled," I replied, forcing a nod even as fear gnawed at my insides. Deep down, I worried that inviting him into my home would expose me to the unpredictable nature of life, the same unpredictability that had already taken so much from me. His brow furrowed, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, concern, perhaps, or a sense of understanding that seemed to transcend words. Yet, as quickly as it appeared, he masked it with a distant gaze. "If it gets worse, we should find somewhere safer," he suggested. "Where would we go?" The words escaped my lips before I could hold them back. "It doesn't matter." "Anywhere but here," he replied. His voice was steady, but I could sense an undercurrent of urgency that left me unsettled. I shivered, not just from the chill creeping in through my window, but from the growing knot of unease in my stomach. He was right, this house, while a refuge from the storm, was also a fragile barrier between us and whatever chaos lay outside. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, cutting through the tension. I turned to see a message light up the screen, a notification from my job. It was an update about layoffs, the words blaring like a siren. My heart sank as I read each line. Eli noticed the change in my demeanor. "What is wrong?" I swallowed hard, unsure how to voice my fears. I didn't want to burden him with my troubles, yet part of me yearned to share this too. "There. Cutting jobs," I finally admitted, my voice trembling that he lowered his head, and I couldn't tell if it was because of the storm outside or a storm brewing within him. "You know, when I lost everything, I thought it was the end," he said quietly, looking for something in the corners of the room. "But sometimes you have to lose it all to realize what truly matters." The sincerity in his voice tugged at my heart, making me feel vulnerable and exposed. As I looked at him, I wondered what he had endured that had led him to such profound thoughts. Then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, he reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. "We'll find a way," he said, his eyes locking onto mine with unwavering determination. But even as he spoke, a loud crack shook the room, more thunder and lightning illuminating the darkness. The lights flickered again, and then, suddenly, they went out, plunging us into pitch blackness. My breath caught in my throat, desperation creeping in as I struggled to keep the panic at bay. I fumbled for my phone, its screen casting a weak glow in the suffocating darkness. "Eli?" I whispered, feeling the tendrils of fear wrapping around me. "Right here," he responded, his voice echoing in the void. I can't." A sudden crash echoed outside, even louder than before, and I felt the ground quake under us. Adrenaline surged through me as I held my breath, gripping the table like a lifeline. What was happening out there? What if the storm destroyed everything I had left? And just as my heart began to race with anxiety, a tremulous laugh escaped the darker recesses of my mind, illuminating a path of humor amid the chaos. "Well, at least if we're going down, We're doing it together, I said, forcing a smile into my trembling voice, but as I looked around, I couldn't help but wonder if the moment we shared would become one of desperation or a turning point towards something brighter, and there it was, the sound of a siren blaring in the distance, drowning out my thoughts and engulfing us in uncertainty. In that instant, I felt a shift in Eli's grip on my hand, and it became clear this was only the beginning of both our journeys, intertwined in ways we couldn't yet fathom. But into what depths of darkness were we being led? As the siren's wail pierced through the pressing darkness, a chill swept through the air, and I thought of the life I had meticulously woven, a fragile tapestry now threatened by nature's wrath. I squeezed Eli's hand, desperate to feel anchored as the storm raged on, its chaotic symphony mirrored by the turmoil within me. "Do you think it's too late?" I whispered, letting the question hang between us, heavy with unspoken fears. Eli didn't answer right away. Instead, I felt him shift, finally moving closer. The flickering light from my phone illuminated his face, revealing the stark shadows of worry etched across his features. "It's never too late to change things," he replied, his voice steady yet raw, as though he was attempting to convince not just me, but himself too. A movement outside the window caught my peripheral vision, momentarily distracting me from the claustrophobic worry filling the room. I turned my gaze toward the rain, falling in sheets, relentless in its pursuit. The world outside was an unrecognizable blur, nature's fury threatening to dismantle all that I had known. "Do you regret coming here?" Eli asked suddenly, his tone shifting from concern to probing, as if he was testing the waters of my vulnerability. "No, not yet," I responded, my heart aching with the weight of honesty. He didn't know what I had risked by letting him in, what threads I had unraveled by offering a hand. His eyes searched mine, and for a moment, I believed I could see a flicker of hope mixed with the shadows. We were two spirits tossed together in the storm, each of us hiding our wounds, yet drawn to one another in a strange synchronization of pain and redemption. The siren faded, replaced by the low rumble of thunder vibrating through the walls. "How did you end up on the streets?" I asked, my voice barely breaking above the sound of rain hammering against the roof. Eli paused, digesting my question as if it were a bitter pill, then began to speak. "It wasn't one big moment that brought me there," he explained. "Just a series of small ones. A bad breakup. Job loss. And somehow," he let out a humorless laugh, "I became a ghost in my own life. Like I was invisible, wandering through the motions." His words struck a chord, reverberating through my own experiences. As much as I had worked to build a semblance of normalcy, there were nights I felt just as lost, disconnected, trapped in the endless cycle of obligation. "I know that feeling," I confessed, my breath hitching as I reflected on my own spiraling thoughts. Just then, a loud crash outside startled us both, sending adrenaline racing through my veins. I shot Eli an alarmed look, and he sat up straighter, eyes wide. "We need to check on the situation," he declared, determination taking root in his voice. "But it's dangerous out there," I protested, instinctively feeling the remnants of the protective barrier of my home slipping away. Eli's expression softened, the fire dimming slightly as he processed my fear. "Maybe it's time to face what's really out there," he said, his gaze unwavering. "Together." I hesitated, clinging to the maybes, the strands of hope intertwined with despair that sprouted between us. The thought of opening the door to the chaos outside filled me with dread. But Eli, too, was a part of my story now, a flickering lantern guiding me through this darkened hour. With a deep breath, I stood and squeezed his hand one last time before releasing it to find my jacket. "Let us do it," I said, steeling myself against the unknown. He nodded, standing beside me like a guardian, sharing an unspoken pact. We moved cautiously toward the door, each step weighing heavily with possibility. Every rumble of thunder felt like a charade, a twisted play where we were actors stepping on stage in our own lives. That I threw open the door and was met with a wall of rain, cold and unrelenting. The wind howled past us, and in that moment, I felt small, teetering on the line between safety and the inescapable chaos of the world. Just outside, I detected movement. A figure was stumbling through the downpour, the silhouette barely recognizable amidst the flashes of lightning. My heart raced as I squinted into the murky gloom. Suddenly, everything seemed to freeze. The fight against the storm, the heart-stopping tension of uncertainty. "Who is that?" Eli whispered, each word a struggle against the tempest. As the figure approached, I felt my pulse quicken, a mingling of fear and an irrational sense of hope. But then all at once, recognition crashed against me like the waves lashing at the shore. "No, it can't be," I breathed, my voice barely audible over the din. With the next flash of lightning, the blurred figure resolved into the face of a ghost from my past, a familiar face I had long tried to forget. The storm wasn't only outside, it had made its way into my life, leaving destruction in its wake. "Sarah," the figure called out, a tremor in their voice that echoed the storm's fury. "I need your help." The words hung in the air, the weight of the moment crashing down around us like the relentless rain. The storm raged on, but inside me, another tempest swirled. The noise outside faded, replaced by the deafening silence of disbelief that engulfed me. I stood frozen, my heart thundering in my chest as the name Sarah reverberated through my mind like a taunt. How had this person found me here, seeking refuge during my moment of vulnerability? "Eli," I whispered, turning to look at him, desperately seeking support in this moment of sheer chaos. But his eyes were fixed on the swaying figure, disbelief and concern etched into his features. There was no comforting squeeze of the hand now, no whispered words of encouragement, only the weight of my past pressing in like the storm outside. "Let her in," Eli finally said, breaking the silence but not my resolve. Despite the swirling emotions, he stepped forward, opening the door wider with an invitation that beckoned the storm inside. "She seems desperate." I hesitated, my heart battling between the instinct to protect myself and the human desire to reach out. But the moment stretched into eternity, a fierce reminder of the choices that brought us here, to this crossroads amid a tempest. Sarah was a messenger from a past I thought I had laid to rest, and yet here she was, dripping with rain and need. "Sarah?" I finally managed, fighting the tremor in my voice. "What are you doing here?" Her face, pale and worn, was illuminated for a fleeting second by another flash of lightning. Conflicting emotions surged through me like an electric current: anger, sorrow, a longing for the girl I once knew. I ran into some trouble," she stammered, a mix of shame and desperation leaking into her words. "I thought you might." "What?" I shot back, each word sharp as glass. "Help you? After everything?" Sarah lowered her gaze, and for a moment, I saw the flicker of the person she used to be, the one I had trusted and confided in before everything fell apart, before the friendship shattered into pieces sharp enough to cut. "Please," she murmured, her voice barely rising above the din of the rain. "I'm scared. I just need a place to rest, just for a little while." In that moment, I felt a wrenching inside me. Elephant suffocated by my own history loomed overhead. I had spent years dodging the ghosts of my past, and now one of them stood right before me, raw and exposed, begging for something I had long thought I could never offer. Eli stood at my side, his expression unreadable, conflicted just like my heart. The clash of loyalty to my past versus the present formed a storm of its own within me. I wanted to scream out that I didn't owe her anything, that her choices had led her here, that my life wasn't a safety net for her failures, and yet something softened within me, a faint inkling of compassion, a whisper buried under layers of hurt. Maybe it was the memory of the laughter we once shared or the bond we had built before it was fractured beyond repair. "Just for a little while," I said at last, the words out before I realized my mind was already fighting against them. I stepped aside, allowing Sarah to cross the threshold into my world, a world I hoped would remain untouched by the storm that had consumed her. As she stepped over the threshold, drenched from the rain, her eyes shone with a glimmer of gratitude that seemed almost foreign. I found myself struggling to suppress a wave of empathy, recollecting moments when we were intertwined in each other's lives, a time when I felt whole. But that flickering light was quickly overshadowed by shadows of doubt. Having Sarah near me meant dredging up all the past pain I had locked away. Would this reunion uncover wounds long since healed, only to be laid bare once more? The storm inside pulsed with unspoken words, and I turned to Eli to share the anguish that must now be weighing on him as well. "Are you okay with this?" He looked straight into my eyes, and the warmth of his presence remained an anchor amidst the confusion. "You have to do what feels right for you," he replied quietly, a compassionate understanding reflected in his gaze. We stood silently, caught between the weight of my decision and the crumbling walls of my self-imposed isolation. "Thank you," Sarah said as she removed her soaked jacket, a hint of hope coloring her features. But I felt a knot still lodged in my stomach, inescapable and heavy, as if the storm was now wedged between us. Suddenly, a distant rumble shattered the moment once more, this time something deeper than thunder, a singular sound that barely registered through the chaos outside. It was like an echo, calling me back to reason, dragging me away from the warmth that flickered between Eli and me, something I hadn't sensed in what felt like lifetimes. "What was that?" I asked, my voice shaking just slightly, fading into the shadows of the past looming behind us. Sarah's eyes widened, reflecting a dawning realization. "I think it's coming more than just the storm. We need to be careful." My breath caught in my throat. A new wave of fear crested over me, and the real storm, a vengeful storm from the past, had just begun to reveal itself, threatening to consume us all. The storm intensified, rain hammering against the windows like a relentless drumbeat urging me to remember. I stared at Sarah, the curtain of water pooling around her feet creating a puddle that mirrored the turbulence within me. Desperation tinged her eyes, a visceral reflection of my own fears, only sharper. "More than just the storm?" I whispered, echoing her words, each syllable weighed down with foreboding. I could feel Eli's gaze sharpen, curiosity laced with concern. The air around us thickened, pressing in like the rising tide of rain outside. I didn't want to come back here," Sarah stammered, her resolve starting to crack like the thunder above. "But something's been happening," she paused, the sentence hanging in delicate silence. "Things I can't explain. You have to trust me." "Trust you?" I snapped, the bitterness creeping in, fueled by memories that scorched my heart. "You betrayed that trust long ago. What makes you think I would do it again?" Eli stepped closer, subtly trying to diffuse the tension. "Just listen. Maybe she has a reason for coming now. We owe it to ourselves to hear her out." I tore my gaze from Sarah and looked at Eli, the warmth in his expression a stark contrast to the freezing confusion churning inside me. It made it harder to uphold the walls I'd built, those defenses altogether threatening to crumble with each passing second. "Please, just let me explain," she pleaded, voice trembling as she wrung out her soaked sleeves. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but stop." I interrupted, my voice reverberating through the dim light of the room. "You don't get to just waltz back in after all this time. What do you want from me? That came with a price I'm not willing to pay." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she shot back, her voice sharper, eyes flashing with something that almost resembled anger mixed with righteous fear. "But I need you to understand. I came here because there is something out there, something I can't explain. I was being followed. I thought maybe I'd be safe here, but I think I brought it with me." My breath caught. As if imparting a new weight into the air, the enormity of her revelation sunk in. What could possibly be capable of forcing Sarah into my life once more? "Sarah, if you're playing games," Eli started, but I raised my hand, silencing him. "If you're serious, then we need to know what you're facing. Give us the details," I demanded, the echo of my own forgotten bravery awakening. Her reflection shimmered for a moment as if caught between conflicting worlds, between the girl I once knew and the woman seeking refuge now. "I don't fully understand it myself," she admitted, the tremor in her voice betraying her. "But after I left I found out some things. People have been watching me. If they find out I came here, the implications twisted my stomach into knots." I looked at Eli, who nodded, determination threading through his expression. "We need to be prepared." "Prepared for what?" I asked, fear creeping back in like an unwelcome mist. "What are they going to do? Why is it happening now?" "I can't tell you everything," she said, stepping closer, shadows painting her features with a grave seriousness. "But they are looking for me. They want something. And I think they might be looking for you too." The weight of her words crashed upon me, the realization blooming into something darker, brushing against the fragile memories I had fought so fiercely to bury. "What do you mean, looking for me?" "I didn't know," she muttered, shaking her head, the moisture-laden air heavy with dread. "But I saw a name, and it shouldn't be tied to this. No one should have known we were connected." But they do. They came to me when I least expected. A name? I pressed, gripping the edge of the counter. One word echoed louder than the storm outside: connected. A thread that had long ago frayed was being pulled tight once more. What name? Yours, she breathed, the horror of those syllables rolling off her lips igniting a new tempest inside me. Eli's hand found mine, grounding amidst the wave of uncertainty. There was no comfort, only the flickering light of hope snuffed by darkening clouds. No, I whispered. Yes, she affirmed, tears shimmering at the corners of her eyes. And I think they're coming for you. All at once, fear wrapped its tendrils around my chest, squeezing painfully tight as I stared at her, disbelief mingling with the confusing knot of compassion still dormant deep within. My heart raced not from affection but from the intoxicating thrill of a storm I feared might sweep us all away, and just then, as if summoned by our building tension, an errant flash of lightning illuminated the room, striking only for an instant but revealing the ominous shadows lurking just outside. The distant sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, their rhythm heavy and deliberate, reminding me that the storm I had invited into my life wasn't just weather, it was something far more sinister. The footsteps grew louder, the sound almost mocking as time seemed to stretch between them and me. My heart slammed against my rib cage, a frantic rhythm at odds with the overwhelming certainty in my gut. This was no ordinary storm, it served as the perfect backdrop to the chaos unfurling before us. Sarah, you need to tell us everything, I urged, panic lacing my voice. Now. I'm trying. She retorted, her hands shaking so violently that they barely reached out to steady herself against the counter. A sliver of compassion threaded through my fear, but it was swallowed by the barrel of uncertainty that had taken up residence in my mind. They want to retrieve someone whose past should stay buried. They approached me with threats, demands. I didn't know who to turn to, she said, her voice crashing with desperation as she clutched her soaked hair, as if willing clarity to return. And then I found out they deconnected me to you, and I knew I had to come here. Eli's face paled, though the storm's shadow kept his expression shrouded. Why you? What do they want? They think you hold the key to something, she murmured, her gaze drifting momentarily as memories collided. Something I've seen. But it wasn't meant for you or me or anyone, it was buried long ago. I didn't ask for it, and neither did you. Buried? What are we talking about? I pressed, desperation edging my tone. Something dangerous, like a hidden truth that people died for, she said, voice trembling. And it's tied to a name, the ones looking for us. They'll stop at nothing to get it back. Eli took a step forward, the tension palpable as he reached for Sarah's arm, grounding her. Why would they come after you? You can't be the only one who knows. Do they think you're something special? She recoiled slightly at the words, and for the first time, a flicker of vulnerability broke through the jagged edges of her anger. That's just it. They think I am the last link, the only one who can lead them to what was lost. The moment I uncovered the truth, I sealed our fate. Outside, the gusts of wind howled like warning sirens, and the rain continued its relentless assault. What if we don't find a way out of this? I asked, my voice thick with trepidation. What if it's too late? Then we fight, Eli said, determination blooming like a fresh wound. But we need a plan. The shadows shifted in the corner of my vision, and I quickly turned my head. The footsteps had stopped, but my mind wouldn't let go of the tension. A chill pressed into the room, weighing down the atmosphere like an anchor. I looked to Sarah, her face was as pale as the light that flickered ineffectively from the ceiling. I shook my head, grappling between protective instincts and the burden of a past I wished to forget. I can't fight this. I don't know what they want. I don't even know who they are. In the end, it doesn't matter who they are, Sarah replied. It's who we choose to be now. The past doesn't define us. We define the past. That's our power. Together, we can figure this out. Her unwavering gaze held me captive, and in that moment, amidst the storm of emotions swirling within and around us, something shifted. A thread of hope intertwined with our fears. As fragile as it was, it anchored me in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Just as I began to think there might be a flicker of possibility, a heavy thud resounded against the front door. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the silence, jagged and abrasive. "Who is it?" I whispered, voice cracking, half fearful of the answer. "I don't know," Eli admitted, tensing beside me, ready to shield us from whatever came next, and then came the voice from outside, deep and gravelly, filling the room with dread. "We know you're in there, Sarah. You can't hide from us. Come out quietly, and we can end this the easy way." My heart sank, and I traded fearful glances with Eli. I could see the resolve hardening in his expression, yet hope was slipping out of reach once more. "That's them," Sarah murmured, fear creeping into her voice. "They've found me." My breath hitched in my throat, and I felt the ground beneath me tremble as the walls closed in. "What are we going to do?" Sarah's eyes darted back to me, a storm of emotions swirling within them: recognition, despair, and perhaps a glimmer of a dare. "We fight back," she whispered, as if our choice had already been made for us, and then, as if the storm had taken matters into its own hands, the lights blinked out, leaving us shrouded in darkness, our fates hanging by a fragile thread, everything illuminated by the screams of the storm outside. A shocking revelation swelled within me. This storm was not just a coincidence, and as I felt the weight of shadows inching closer, I realized that embracing the past might be our only chance to change the storm sweeping in, and it could tear apart more than just the walls of this house. The silence that followed the declaration of impending danger was deafening, each second stretching into eternity as we waited for something to happen. The pulse of my heart drummed in my ears, drowning out everything except for the distant roar of the storm. Then, almost as if in retribution, the house shuddered, blessed with a momentary flicker as the electricity fought to reclaim its dominion over the darkness. Eli held a protective stance in front of Sarah, as if shielding her would somehow lessen the weight of what awaited us. I could see the fear clawing at her face, the same fear swirling beneath my own skin, manifesting itself into an all-encompassing dread. "We need to move," I whispered, grasping her hand instinctively, as if the simple act of touching her would knit together our fractured hopes. "No," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "They don't want to hurt me, not yet. They want what I have, and if I vanish, they'll come looking for you. We need to think this through." Her eyes were fierce, refusing to cave to panic. That I inhaled sharply, the weight of her words settling like lead in my stomach. Did she really think that they wouldn't retaliate if they didn't get what they wanted? Every instinct screamed at me to run, to escape this madness before it nestled too deeply in our lives. Yet here was Sarah, clutching onto the thread of hope we had woven only moments before, her determination infectious. Eli exhaled sharply, eyes locked onto Sarah's. "We need to buy some time. Let us barricade the door, and then knock." Knock. The sound rattled through the darkness once more, louder this time, more insistent. "We know you're in there, Sarah. Time is ticking. You're out of options," the same gravelly voice taunted, sending icy fingers of fear down my spine. "Keep your voice down," Eli hissed. Yet the urgency in the man's voice made it nearly impossible to focus on anything else. That a glimmer of resolve flickered within me, igniting a courageous flame I didn't know I possessed. Maybe I barely recognized the words as they left my lips, but the swell of adrenaline fed my conviction. Maybe if we can't run, we can draw them away. If we can get outside, we could buy Sarah enough time to figure out how to get away from their grasp altogether. "What? And let them take you?" Sarah's voice was strained, disbelief battling against the fierce protective barrier we all seemed to form around each other. "Any idea is better than doing nothing," I said, forcing the words out through the rising tide of panic. "If they're focused on us, we can create a distraction. If I draw them away, just for a few moments, enough to let you slip out the back, maybe it'll work. Or you could get yourself killed," Eli countered, his voice edging on desperate. "Better than sitting here waiting," I shot back. The air crackled with the weight of our impending reality, the storm outside culminating into a frenzy that mirrored my rising pulse. I was already afraid of what would come next. If we remained paralyzed in fear, it would be worse. Eli's jaw tightened, and though his eyes flashed with concern, I could sense that he was weighing my words, each thought heavy with meaning. The moment hung suspended like the calm before the storm ripped through our lives. Just then, there was a commotion outside, like a thunderclap after a long silence. Someone shouted, the voice piercing through the storm. Sarah! The urgency in it was unmistakable, a cry that cut through all uncertainty. Someone was searching. At that moment, I felt a burst of adrenaline rush through me. This had become bigger than just the three of us tangled in this whirlwind. Let us go, I urged again. We have to act now. Reluctantly, Eli backed down, his resolve crumbling under the weight of my insistence. Fine. But we stick together. I nodded, our collective heartbeats sinking in the dark as we moved into a huddle by the back door. I unclasped the lock slowly, casting one final glance over my shoulder at Sarah. Whatever awaited us outside, I wouldn't let her face it alone. With a final rush of breath, I pushed the door open, the storm practically sucking us into its wild embrace. The rain lashed at our faces, stinging like tiny needles, and I could only barely catch a glimpse of the scene unfolding beyond the front of the house. Figures cloaked in darkness moved just out of sight, swift and silent, commandeering the very essence of fear. Now! I urged, burying every ounce of dread deep beneath the denial of what we were facing. We needed to be quick. It was our only chance. As we sprinted across the backyard, a sudden shout ripped through the air behind us, slicing the atmosphere like a dagger. There they are. Fingers gripped my arm, and I turned. It was Sarah, her eyes wide with realization as light flickered from somewhere within the tempest. But before I could process the meaning of her expression, the piercing glimmer shifted behind her, darting toward the horizon, an unintended beacon leading our pursuers right to us. That a massive figure emerged from the shadows, and my breath stilled as recognition gripped me like a vice. The last face I would have ever expected to see was now staring back at me. A face from my past. A face I had long thought buried beneath the weight of time. Do you really think you could run from this? Said Jake, his voice low and filled with anger. You have no idea what you've stepped into. And with that, the winds howled even louder, carrying the tempest of our past into the storm raging all around us, leaving me with a profound realization. The storm wasn't just about what we had buried, but about what was now rising like a tide we could no longer escape. The storm's roar beat down on us relentlessly, the shadows of the night swirling around like a dark cloak that threatened to swallow whole any glimmer of hope. My heart raced as I faced Jake, a tempest of emotion crashing within me. Time hung in the balance, the past we had cradled close now tore at me like jagged edges of glass. How had he found us? Jake, this isn't what you think, I began, my voice a desperate plea echoing against the chaos. We didn't mean to what? He stepped forward, his figure looming as lightning flashed, lighting the contours of his face like a cruel spotlight. You didn't mean to get involved with people who will ruin your lives? Or maybe you didn't mean to drag Sarah into this? You should have stayed away. Before I could respond, the figures from the shadows erupted into sight, fanning out like hungry wolves ready to pounce. Panic clawed at my throat. Run! I shouted, instinct kicking in, but my voice felt small against the rising crescendo of the storm. The three of us turned to bolt in the opposite direction, the muddy ground sucking at our feet as we burst through the thick brush lining the yard. It was a race against the ghosts of our pasts, but we weren't alone, and as I threw a glance back, I realized the truth. Jake wasn't aligned with them, not really. He was as trapped in this web as we were. A flash of movement caught my eye. Eli was tugging Sarah further away from the path behind us while glancing over his shoulder, urging me onward as he gritted his teeth through the downpour. This way! He shouted, pointing toward an old shed that lay half hidden by the brambles and shadows. That we hurled ourselves to the structure, breathless and panicked, our fear coiling tightly around any chance of rational thought. The shed's door creaked ominously as we shoved it open, barely squeezing inside just as a flash of lightning illuminated the scene behind us, revealing the advancing figures drawing ever closer. Are we safe? Sarah gasped, wrapping her arms tightly around herself, tracing circles on her skin in a futile attempt at comfort as her eyes darted around the dim confines of the shed. The scent of wood and rust mingled with the storm outside, an unsettling blend that mirrored my own turmoil. For now, I replied, though uncertainty filled my heart. But we can't stay here for long. They'll find us. My words tapered off, lost in the unrelenting beat of rain drumming against the roof, as I wrestled with the shadows of doubt creeping in. Eli pulled out his phone, but the screen remained stubbornly dark, the storm having cut off any glimmer of a signal. No reception, he muttered, frustration bubbling beneath his calm facade. That I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. We need to think. Why is Jake here? What does he want with us? My voice trembled despite my efforts. Memories of our split, of his betrayal, clawed at my mind, churning my stomach into knots. Do you think he's with them? Sarah asked, her voice low as she leaned closer to Eli, seeking comfort in his unwavering presence. I don't think so, Eli replied, the edges of his lips tightening. Listen, if Jake's warning us, perhaps he's here for a reason that we don't yet understand. Either he's trying to protect us, or he's here to drag us deeper into this mess. From somewhere beyond the door, a resounding clash of thunder jolted my heart. I gripped Sarah's hands as if binding us together against the storm, fear still fascinatingly transparent in the pull of moments we spent in silence, waiting in suspense. Just then, the door of the shed splintered, a silhouette emerging from the chaos behind me. Jake's murky form stepped into the flickering light that danced through the cracks. You really have no idea what's at stake, do you? He said, his voice thick with urgency, eyes darting to each of us as he stepped closer. Then enlighten us. I pleaded, my heart racing at the brittle line we now walked. His gaze softened as the rain beat down heavily on the roof overhead, almost urging him on. They're not just after Sarah's gift. This is so much bigger. It's about control, and it's coming from somewhere darker than you can imagine. You can't trust anyone, not even me. With each word, the air around us felt thick with tension, laden with untold stories and unseen dangers. My mind whirled, caught between the past that stung with betrayal and the future that loomed threateningly ahead, a storm of confusion and new realities swirling madly before us. Let me help you, Jake continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. But we need to move. Now. They're closer than you think. In that moment, something within me wavered. The flickering candle of hope that had fueled our determination now shone dimly, blurring resolve with uncertainty. A decision loomed like a dark cloud overhead. With his knowing gaze fixed on me, I realized I was standing at the precipice, a choice hanging precariously in the air. Will you trust me? He asked. The question settled heavily in the room, vibrating with uncontained anxiety. The storm raged on, the echoes of our shared history screaming louder with every heartbeat. As the shadows crept closer, we were left teetering on the brink of revelation, unable to plunge forward without risking all that we held dear. Then, just as I opened my mouth to reply, a deafening crash echoed through the night. The shed vibrated around us, and for the briefest moment, we were all suspended in time, teetering on the edge of fate, waiting to see if we could escape the storm that swirled ominously closer. As the shed shook, a wave of fear crashed over me. My stomach twisted painfully, and I struggled to focus as the realization hit we were trapped. Outside, the storm was relentless, but inside this small wooden structure, I could almost feel the walls closing in, the very air turning stale with uncertainty. Jake's face hardened as he turned toward the doorway, instinctively moving to shield us from whatever was crashing through the storm, his presence a fortress even amidst the chaos. Get back! He shouted, his voice a booming command that resonated deep within me, igniting a flicker of earlier trust. Eli grabbed Sarah, pulling her further back into the corners of the shed as I hesitated, caught between the instinct to protect and the longing to understand. Whatever's coming, we need to be ready. We can't let fear control us, I said, the weight of leadership settling back onto my shoulders. Despite the ache in my chest from Jake's betrayal, I felt the urgency of our situation igniting a fire within me. Suddenly, the shadows themselves seemed to morph into figures, distorted, shape-shifting glimpses of our past worries as two familiar faces emerged, illuminated by the sparks of lightning. The figures from the storm ground before us became clearer, Marcus and Vicky, their eyes wild, cloaked in the urgency of the moment. It turned out, our history had brought them together with us yet again. Jake, we need to move. Vicky whispered urgently, but her confusion was evident as she scanned the group, struggling to comprehend what had happened since we last engaged with each other. It's not safe out there. They're closer than you think. Not just outside, Jake shot back, his voice carrying an edge of command mingled with a touch of desperation. It's coming from all sides. We need to gather what we can and prepare for a battle. Wait, you mean they're after us right now? Marcus interjected, disbelief gripping at his tone. But we thought it was over. We thought we were done with this. No, it's only just begun, Jake replied. And if we don't act, there's a chance we'll lose everything fighting this together. Silence barred our response as we absorbed his words, the weight of his warning looming as heavy as the storm above. Unspoken emotions swirled, old wounds resurfaced, unhealed and raw, but beneath it all was a begrudging acknowledgement of our shared vulnerabilities. But I noticed, amidst the chaos, the small glimmers of kindness lingering just beneath the surface, a hand reaching out every now and then, soft gazes traded between Eli and Sarah, our scattered alliances reweaving ties that had frayed through trials and tribulations. Okay, I said finally, steeling myself as I stepped forward. My heart pounded fiercely, matched only by the thunder outside. If this is going to work, we all need to be on the same team. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, each gaze mingling with its shaky resolve. Even as uncertainty loomed, I felt a warmth blossom within, a reminder that we were not alone. Perhaps, through the storm, we could find a way back to each other. With hope's gentle tug, we could weather whatever tempest lay ahead. Jake's eyes examined me carefully, searching, as if gauging the weight of my commitments, but it was the warmth of my resolve that flickered in his gaze, reflected back at me in a way I hadn't seen for a long time. You're right, he said, finally relinquishing his fierce posture. Together, we stand a chance. As he spoke, moments of the past flickered through my mind, the laughter shared, the vulnerabilities bared, and the heartaches felt. Each memory seemed like a thread stitching our lives together, and I felt a deeper truth ignite between us. Then, just as the weight of the world crashed down, a loud crash resounded from outside, splintering the remnants of our determined spirits. My heart sank. The door burst open with a deafening snap, revealing two shadowy figures silhouetted against the heavy, storm-wrought mist outside, their forms silhouetted only briefly before they too were swallowed into the darkness. Beyond, the suggestion of a confrontation hung ominously in the air. Stay back, I shouted instinctively, adrenaline pulsing through my veins. One of the figures stepped forward, hands raised, but their shadows danced menacingly around them. The storm outside roared in approval, drenching us in its fury as old ghosts collided with new challenges. Help us. The figure's voice broke through the rain, resonating with a hint of familiarity, but before the panic could settle, I recognized what was unfolding before us. That it was Davis, along with another familiar face, one I hadn't seen since the fractures that had torn us apart. My breath caught, and the world outside blurred for a moment as realization coursed through me. We were gathering a coalition of the broken. Davis's eyes bore into mine, pleading for understanding, for a connection we had lost along our individual paths. But just as I opened my mouth to respond, the storm unleashed its most formidable roar, a bolt of lightning striking perilously close. The shed shook violently, like a ship listing in tempestuous waters, and I felt time suspend once more as the true implications of our reunion crashed over me. We may be facing a reality that would alter everything we had known, and whether we could withstand it was a question that hung heavy in the air. Then, without warning, the ground beneath us trembled, throwing us off balance. The roof creaked ominously as if answering the powerful clash above us. A dark shadow loomed behind Davis, but before I could grasp the nature of the threat, the shed's brittle structure gave way, forcing us into unprepared action. Everything hung in the balance, my heart racing as we were swallowed by the storm once more, fate clinging heavily to our every breath. The darkness enveloped me, and as we stumbled out into the storm, I felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. The air was electric, the world around us was a whirlwind of chaos, but amidst it all, I clung desperately to the fragile thread of hope that had formed between us. Somehow, against all odds, we had come together, each of us carrying our scars, but armed with the unwavering intent to survive. In the frantic urgency of that moment, it was impossible to ignore the ache in my heart, the remnants of betrayal, the memories of loss, and the fierce longing for redemption. Jake's eyes were steadier now, and I could sense his determination shoring up my own, even as the storm raged on, threatening to tear us apart yet again. "Get to the trees, it'll give us cover," he shouted over the furious winds, and I nodded, pushing forward as Eli kept Sarah close. The rain lashed down like daggers, blurring our vision, but we couldn't stop now. With each footfall, a fierce camaraderie began to build like the rising tide, fortified by shared fears and hopes. Each of us was a flickering flame in the tempest, drawing strength from one another, bound together by the very thing that threatened to drown us, our past. As we darted forward, someone yelled from behind. It was Davis. "Wait for us," he cried, urgency threading his voice. My heart skipped. He was part of my past too, one that had become a ghost I longed to exorcise. But we had no time for hesitation. I could feel the darkness closing in, the malevolence of the unknown pressing down fiercely, whispering doubts about our choice to face it together. We finally reached the thick trunks of the trees, their towering forms offering a moment of sanctuary from the storm's ferocity. Huddled together, we exchanged frantic glances, breaths coming in ragged spurts as I caught my breath amidst the chaos. "What do we do now?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with fear, but I noticed a spark of resolve beginning to blossom in her eyes. "We make a plan," I replied, though I could hardly believe the determination that infused my voice. "We can't fight this alone, it's never worked before." I glanced at Jake, who nodded in agreement, and in that moment, I felt a swell of something, not quite trust, but a willingness to try. "Agreed," Davis chimed in. "We need to find out what they want, and how we can rally others to our side. We're not alone in this." It was as if the notion had ignited a fire within us, the flames flickering hope across our faces. The storm would not extinguish us. "No more running," I declared, feeling the weight of everyone's attention settle upon me, anchoring my resolve. "We can't keep hiding from our past. We can't keep letting it define us." As the words built upon each other, I felt Eli's hand find mine warm and steady, grounding me in the chaos swirling around us. "This time, we stand together," he nodded, his gaze fierce and unwavering. "Fight or flight, we choose to fight." Suddenly, the rain seemed to ease for just a moment, inviting the whispers of new possibilities woven into the very fabric of the storm. As if summoned by our collective strength, the thunder rolled low, a vivid reminder that while the tempest raged outside, we could forge a path forward together. It felt like a second chance, a renewal forged in fire and shadow, and I couldn't afford to let that flicker die. But just then, piercing through our shared moment of resolve, a sound crackled through the misty air, footsteps marching steadily through the rain, coming closer. I felt the tension rise, dragging us back to the impending threat lurking just out of sight. "Get ready," Jake hissed, steeling himself as he peered through the trees. With every ounce of courage I could muster, I turned to face the gathering darkness, determined to unravel the ties holding us to our past and seize the chance to transform it into something new. As the figures emerged from the shadows, a beam of light splayed out into the night, and for the first time, I was confronted with the truths hidden in the storm. A chilling realization washed over me. Standing before them was a group I recognized, individuals once devoured by anger, vengeance, and the wayward consequences of our shared choices. But amid the advancing figures, I spotted one face that ignited both hope and confusion within me. "Eric?" I breathed, feeling the deeply buried remnants of our connection stirring, even against the tumult surrounding us. "What are you doing here?" With a tense step forward, he met my gaze, recognition flooding his expression amid the chaos as the rain continued to drum like a wild heartbeat. "We've come for you, for all of you," he remarked, his voice resonating over the din. "It's time to end this once and for all." As the storm raged on, I found myself feeling both apprehensive and hopeful, realizing that we were not just individuals drawn together by our past, but a collective force capable of facing the tempest that threatened to consume us. At that moment, I understood that our fates were intertwined, and the only way we could emerge from this storm was to embrace it together, forging not just an alliance but a luminescent tapestry of possibilities from all of our history's pasts that were interwoven. Like threads, each potentially leading us to the light that flickered far beyond the darkened chaos. And in that decisive moment, as the rain poured down relentlessly above us, I knew now it was not just about survival, but about connection. It was a realization that would change everything. Together, we rise, I murmured, the words melding into a vow, a fierce promise to regain everything we thought was lost. And with that promise resonating in the heart of the storm, I felt hope blossom anew, uniting us all beneath the tempest, forging a path toward redemption, healing, and a chance at true freedom together.